A promising option for securing the supply of power in a future highly renewable energy system is the concept of capacity subscription. In this clip, we'll review how capacity subscription works and how it can also help to encourage demand response in a highly renewable energy system. Capacity subscription is essentially a decentralized capacity market, but there's one very important difference. Instead of the TSO or the government determining how much generation capacity needs to be installed, each consumer individually decides how much capacity he wants to pay for. The consumer's capacity subscription gives him a right to consume a certain amount of electricity at an acceptable price anytime, regardless of whether there's a supply shortage. But during shortages, the consumer may not be allowed to consume more than his subscribed capacity. Most of the time, the consumption of electricity is not limited by the capacity subscription, and consumers just pay the current market price for electricity. When there's a risk that there is not enough generation capacity to meet demand, then the system operator limits electricity consumption to the amount of capacity that each consumer has bought. The system operator does this by activating so-called load limiting devices, the LLD in the picture. This may simply be a feature of a smart energy meter. For instance, if a household has subscribed to 3 kilowatts of capacity, then during the limitation period, it may not consume more than 3 kilowatts. This means that the household consumer may need to change the time when he is charging his electric vehicle, or perhaps he has a heat buffer that allows him to use his heat pump a bit earlier or later. Consumers have two options to deal with electricity supply shortages. They could buy more capacity, but they need to do that in advance, so generators have the time to build the corresponding capacity. During an actual shortage, consumers need to reduce their demand. However, if they want, they can buy a battery to have an extra buffer. Consumers can decide best for themselves how much capacity they want to contract, so how much they want to pay for peak capacity, versus how flexible they can be. So, capacity subscription provides an intrinsic incentive for demand response, which makes it a very efficient solution. With capacity subscription, electricity becomes a bit more like your mobile telephone contract, in the sense that more than today, you're paying for a service. The more you pay, the more you may consume during peak hours. It's not completely the same though, because during peak periods with little solar and wind energy, the electricity price may still go up. But consumers will not be faced with very high scarcity prices like in other market models. Capacity subscription reduces price risk for consumers, while an advantage for producers is that the demand for dispatchable capacity is made explicit, like in a capacity market, and it also reduces their price risk. An often heard objection is that capacity subscription may be too complex for household consumers. A pragmatic solution is to make it an opt-in system. The starting point is then that consumers just behave like they do now, except that part of their electricity bill is a fixed monthly payment, and that payment is proportional to their peak demand during shortage hours. In exchange for this payment, they would already have the benefit of high reliability and the absence of high prices during shortages. Now, if a consumer is willing and able to reduce his peak demand, then the next year his fixed payment goes down. If a consumer opts into the system, then he contracts his capacity in advance and he commits to that capacity limit. This may be cheaper for him, but it also requires more active involvement. Taking everything into consideration, capacity subscription is the most market-based policy option that we have, because it allows consumers to choose their own level of reliably available power. It does require a real-time meter at every consumer. The main drawback is that the system is untested, so we don't know how consumers will react. And there's still a need to regulate generators to make sure that the capacity credits that they sell really are backed up with reliably available generation capacity.